The surveillance room hummed with the quiet hiss of electronics, and Giovanni Bianchi stood motionless, his silhouette framed against 6 monitors glowing with grainy black and white footage. 42 years old, 6'2", his shoulders broad and carved from decades of moving through a world where mercy was currency spent recklessly. His tailored charcoal suit cost more than most people earned in a month. A thin scar ran from his left eye to his cheekbone, a map of a violence he had long ago stopped counting. His dark hair was silvered at the temples, and his hands, large, capable hands with 2 gold rings that had belonged to his father, were very still. Behind him, 2 men stood in identical silence. Bruno, 41, muscular, with a neck like a tree trunk and eyes that missed nothing. Franco, younger by 5 years, leaner but somehow more dangerous, the kind of man whose stillness suggested coiled spring rather than calm. Both had worked for Giovanni for nearly 15 years. Neither had ever seen him like this. On the center monitor, a woman moved through the service entrance of his penthouse building. 3 in the morning. Again. She wore a dark coat, oversized, borrowed from someone else's closet, and she carried 2 canvas bags that looked heavy with something Giovanni could not identify. Her hair was dark, shoulder length, and even through the degraded video quality, her face showed the kind of exhaustion that suggested she had forgotten what sleep felt like. Aria Harper. She had been inside his world for exactly 23 days. "Play the footage from the other entrance," Giovanni said. His voice came out like distant thunder, low and final. No inflection. No emotion. Just the sound of a man who had learned long ago that words were weapons that cut deeper when delivered quietly. Franco moved without being asked twice. The monitors shifted. Now they showed Aria slipping out through the underground garage at 2:17 a.m., carrying the same bags. Empty hands returning. Just her, alone, disappearing into the Boston darkness like a ghost who had learned how to walk through walls. Bruno cleared his throat. The sound was small, almost apologetic. "The Rossi family has been moving through the sheltered district," he said. "The old one, on Hanson Street. We have reports she was seen near there. Multiple times. For times in the past 2 weeks." Giovanni's jaw clenched. He reached for the whiskey glass on the desk beside him, and when he brought it to his lips, the crystal caught the blue light from the monitors and fractured it into 100 pieces. The whiskey was 18 years old, imported from a town outside Naples where his grandfather had been born. He swallowed it and felt nothing. "What is she doing?" Franco asked. The question hung in the air like smoke that refused to clear. Giovanni did not answer. Instead, he set the glass down with such careful precision that it made no sound. Then, slowly, his grip tightened. The crystal began to crack under the pressure of his hand. One fracture, thin and spider-like. Then another. He watched it happen as though he were observing someone else destroy something beautiful. 3 weeks ago, Giovanni said, she threw herself in front of a knife that was meant for me. "Yes, sir," Bruno said. "In a diner on Atlantic Avenue. In front of 15 witnesses. The blade was meant to go through my chest. Instead, it went through her shoulder. 6 inches deep. The doctor said if the angle had been slightly different, the knife would have found her heart instead." Franco shifted his weight. Outside the windows of the penthouse, Boston sprawled beneath them like a chessboard where every piece had been positioned according to rules written long ago in blood and oath. "She saved your life," Franco said carefully. "And now," Giovanni continued, "she meets with the Rossi family. She carries bags she will not explain. She leaves at midnight and returns before dawn, her hands empty and her lips sealed. In my world, Bruno, this is what they call a pattern. In my world, Franco, a pattern like this is a language. And the language says, betrayal." The word hung between them. Betrayal. In Giovanni's family, his own brother had once spoken this language fluently. 16 years ago, his brother Vittorio had sold information to the Carmine family about shipments coming through the port. Shipments that mattered. Shipments that meant cash flow, power, empire. Vittorio had done it for money. For a woman. For reasons that sounded reasonable inside a comfortable apartment but sounded like cowardice when you were standing over 3 bodies in the warehouse on Patterson Street. Giovanni had made the choice then. The choice that meant his brother would never see the sunrise again. The choice that taught him, in perfect clarity, that loyalty was not a feeling. It was a currency. And when someone spent it elsewhere, the price was always the same. "Bring her back," Giovanni said. "So?" Bruno's voice carried a note of something, hesitation, maybe, or the first whisper of a question he did not quite dare to ask. "Bring her back here." "Alone?" "At her next departure, have her watched. When she reaches the shelter district, bring her back. I want to know what she is doing. I want to know who she is meeting. And I want to know before the sun rises tomorrow." Bruno nodded. Franco moved toward the door, but he moved slowly, and when he spoke, his words came out like a man walking carefully through a minefield. "Sir, with respect. You have a concern?" Giovanni's eyes did not leave the monitors. On the screen, Aria was slipping down a stairwell somewhere in the building's depths. Her movements were careful, furtive, practiced. The movements of someone who had learned how to hide. "She saved your life," Franco said again. "In 15 years, I have watched you read people the way other men read weather reports. You know when someone is lying. You know when the mouth says one thing and the heart says another. You brought her inside because something about her was true. I saw it. Bruno saw it. Even the men saw it. You have not brought a woman into this world in 22 years, Giovanni finished. Since Elena died." The name fell into the silence like a stone dropped into still water, and the ripple spread outward in every direction. Franco said nothing. Bruno said nothing. They both knew what Elena meant. They both knew that Giovanni Bianchi had loved Elena the way some men love oxygen, as a necessity for breathing. And when she had been taken from him, when the car bomb meant for him had taken her instead, something had calcified inside his chest. Something that had never quite thawed. Until 3 weeks ago. Until a woman with dark eyes and calloused hands had thrown herself between him and a blade. "Get her," Giovanni said. "Now." At almost exactly that same moment, 3 miles away, Aria Harper was sitting on the concrete floor of a room that smelled like industrial bleach and despair, and she was reading a children's book aloud. The book was old, its pages soft from handling, its cover warped by water damage. The book had cost her $2 at a thrift shop on Massachusetts Avenue. $2 she could not afford to spend. The child listening was 7 years old. Her name was Emma, and she had not spoken a word in the 53 days she had been at the Hanson Street shelter. Emma sat very close to Aria, so close their shoulders touched, and her eyes moved across the pictures in the book like she was reading them, not Aria's voice. Like the illustrations mattered more than the words. Her hair was dark brown, uncombed, and there was a small silver locket around her neck that caught the fluorescent light in the ceiling and threw it back in small sharp flashes. "The rabbit found the garden," Aria read, "and the garden was beautiful. There were flowers in every color, and the rabbit was not alone anymore." Emma's small hand reached out and touched the page. Not the text. The picture. The garden specifically. Her fingertip rested on a flower that was painted red. Aria had been coming here every night for 23 days, since the night she had met Giovanni in the diner. Since the knife. Since everything changed. She had been coming because of the locket. Because on the morning she had brought Emma new clothes and clean socks from her own impossible poverty, Emma had shown her the locket, and inside the locket was a photograph, and in the photograph was a man with dark hair and a scar running from his eye to his cheekbone, and Aria had known with absolute certainty who he was. Emma was Giovanni Bianchi's daughter. The girl who had been reported missing from a Boston hospital 9 months ago. The girl whose disappearance had been blamed on a custody dispute and a mother running with the child to Europe. The girl who had been mourned and searched for, and who was now sitting in a shelter that smelled like bleach because somehow, impossibly, she had been brought to this place, and no one had known who she was. But Aria had known. The moment she saw the locket. And in knowing, she had made a choice. A choice that had seemed simple at the time, standing in that basement room at 3 in the morning with a 7-year-old girl who needed someone. The choice was to keep Emma safe. To keep her secret. To build a bridge between this child and a father who did not even know she existed anymore. She had not thought, on the night she made this choice, that keeping secrets from a mafia boss might be the most dangerous thing she had ever done. She had not thought that a man who had killed his own brother for betrayal might someday believe she was doing the same thing. She had only thought, this child needs me. Someone has to protect her. And I will. Will you stay? Emma asked. Her voice was very small, barely a whisper, a sound like wind through an empty building. It was the first word she had spoken in 53 days, and it broke something inside Aria's chest. I will always stay, Aria said. As long as you need me. But even as she said it, she heard the sound of a car engine outside. The shelter had only one entrance, and there were men's voices carrying through the walls, voices that did not belong to the shelter staff. Voices that carried the particular timbre of danger dressed in expensive suits. Aria's heart began to accelerate. She knew that timbre. She had heard it before, on the night the knife had found her shoulder instead of Giovanni's chest. She had felt it in her bones when she looked at the man who had caught her before she fell, held her while the paramedics came, never left her side in the hospital until she told him she needed air. She had felt it the same way she felt it now, like the earth itself was shifting underneath her feet, and nothing would ever be safe again. Stay here, Aria whispered to Emma. Do not make a sound. She moved toward the door, and behind her, she heard Emma reach for the locket, heard the small child touch the photograph of a father she would not remember, and whisper a single word into the darkness, Daddy. The fluorescent hum cuts through the bathroom silence like a blade wrapped in ice. Aria Harper stands in front of the gas station mirror at 3 in the morning, and her reflection is a stranger wearing her face. Gaunt. Hollow-eyed. Exhausted in a way that sleep could never fix. Her hands shake as she smooths out a $5 bill on the wet counter, arranging it next to 3 tens, 2 ones, and 9 crumpled singles. $34. This is everything she has left in the world. The industrial soap smell hangs heavy in the stale air, mixed with something else, something chemical and sharp that makes her throat tight. She counts again. 34. As if counting a second time might somehow conjure more money into existence. It does not. The cold tile under her bare feet reminds her that her socks have holes in both heels, and she cannot afford to replace them. The water in the sink is ice cold. She splashes it on her face anyway, and the shock of it steadies something inside her chest. She has been living in her car for 6 months now. A 2008 Honda Civic with a cracked windshield and a check engine light that has been on so long she stopped seeing it. She parks it behind the Boston Mercy shelter every night, where she volunteers for hours a day in exchange for access to the bathrooms and the warmth of their hallways. For hours of sorting donations, organizing meal tickets, and listening to the stories of people who have nothing. Stories that sound like her own story, told with different names and different cities. Everything she owns fits in a backpack. 2 shirts. 1 pair of jeans. A toothbrush with bristles that are starting to fray. And a photograph. A 4x6 photograph in a frame that is barely holding together, the glass cracked on one corner. It is the only thing she cannot bear to lose. The photograph shows a man with kind eyes and a slow smile, standing in front of a farmhouse with white columns and a wraparound porch. His name was Michael. He was her husband. He has been dead for 4 years, and the photograph is the only thing she has left of him besides the wedding ring she sold 18 months ago when the hospital bills came due. The hospital bills. The reason she lost the apartment. The reason she lost the car payments and then the car itself and then found another car, a worse car, a car that belonged to someone who needed money so badly they did not ask too many questions. The hospital bills for the surgery that did not save him anyway. The operation cost $47,000. She had insurance. The insurance company said it was an experimental procedure, not covered, not approved. She had spent 3 weeks arguing with different representatives on hold, listening to elevator music and watching the clock count down on her savings, and by the end of those 3 weeks, Michael had died anyway. That was 4 years ago. She has not recovered. She looks at her reflection one more time. The woman staring back at her is 29 years old but looks decades older. Her dark hair is tangled at the ends. Her skin has lost its color. There is a bruise on her left cheekbone that is starting to fade to yellow, a souvenir from 2 weeks ago when a man in the shelter got angry and swung his fist near her face. She had ducked, and he had missed, mostly. The bruise remains. Nothing else about that night changed. Aria folds the $34 back into her pocket and walks out of the bathroom into the fluorescent brightness of the gas station convenience store. An employee behind the counter does not look up as she passes. She buys nothing. She never buys anything here. She just uses the bathroom because the gas station does not stop her, and the shelter bathrooms are occupied at 3 in the morning with people who are desperate and dangerous, people she needs to avoid. The parking lot is empty except for her car and one semi-truck parked at the far edge, its engine running, sending plumes of grey exhaust into the dark. She climbs into the driver's seat of her Honda, locks the door, and sits in the silence. The clock on the dashboard reads 3:33. She has 17 minutes before she needs to leave for the shelter. That gives her enough time to eat half of the peanut butter sandwich she made yesterday from a jar that cost $2 and will last, if she rations it carefully, for 3 more weeks. She does not eat the sandwich. Instead, she pulls out the photograph of Michael and holds it against her chest in the dark, breathing slowly, trying to remember what it felt like when someone loved her enough to build a life with her. Before the bills. Before the loss. Before she became invisible to the world. At the shelter, nothing has changed in the 6 months she has been coming here. The walls are still a shade of beige that looks like old bruises. The fluorescent lights still hum in a way that makes her temples ache. The donation bins still overflow with clothes that smell like mildew and cigarettes and the particular staleness of things that have been touched by too many desperate hands. It is during the 4th hour of her shift when Aria sees her. A child, no more than 7 years old, with dark curls and enormous brown eyes, standing alone in the corner of the clothing donation area. The child is wearing a dress that is too big for her small frame, and she is not speaking to anyone. She is simply watching. Watching everyone, watching Aria, watching the way people move through the shelter like ghosts who have learned to expect nothing and are rarely disappointed. Aria approaches slowly. She has learned, in 6 months of working here, that children in shelters are often terrified of kindness. Kindness from a stranger usually comes with a price they cannot pay. "What is your name?" Aria asks. Her voice is gentle, barely a whisper, a sound like wind through an empty building. The child does not answer. She simply stares. "I am Aria," Aria continues. "I work here. Are you looking for something?" The child's eyes fill with tears, but she does not cry. She simply stands there with her cheeks wet, looking at this woman she has never met before, and something in that moment breaks open in Aria's chest. She recognizes this look. She has seen it in mirrors. It is the look of someone who has learned that the world is not safe, and nobody is coming to save her. "It is okay," Aria says. "You are safe here. I promise." The word "safe" comes out before Aria can stop it. A lie? There is nowhere safe. But the child nods very slightly, and that small motion, that fragile acceptance of the lie, is enough. Over the next 3 weeks, Aria learns that the child's name is Emma. Emma does not speak much. She has not spoken in 53 days, according to the shelter staff, not since she arrived with a social worker who had found her wandering near the harbor, dirty and alone, with no identification and no parents who came forward to claim her. Emma has a file now. Emma has a case number. Emma is a child without a home and without a name that anyone can verify, and because of this, she sits in the shelter every day watching the other children, watching the adults, learning that the world is not a place built for people like her. But when Aria is near her, Emma does not look away. Aria sits with her during lunch. Aria brings her extra servings of the thin soup they serve on Tuesdays. Aria learns the way Emma takes her milk, the way she eats her crackers one at a time, making them last, stretching them out until the meal takes 30 minutes instead of 5. Aria learns that Emma hums very quietly when she thinks no one is listening, a melody that sounds like a lullaby in a language Aria does not recognize. On the 21st day, Emma reaches under her collar and pulls out a small silver locket on a chain. The locket is real silver. You can tell by the weight of it, by the way it catches the light. It does not belong in a shelter. It belongs in a house with marble countertops and people who have never had to count their money in a gas station bathroom at 3 in the morning. "Can I see?" Aria asks. Emma opens the locket with trembling fingers. Inside is a photograph of a man. Tall. Dark-haired. Severe face, sharp cheekbones, intense eyes that seem to cut through the photograph itself and look directly at you. He is wearing an expensive suit, and on his left wrist is a watch that probably costs more than Aria's car. He is handsome in a way that seems dangerous, like looking at him too long might be a mistake. "That is my papa," Emma whispers. Her voice is very small. It is the first sentence she has spoken in 53 days. "He does not know where I am. I do not know how to find him." Aria does not recognize the man. She does not know his name. She does not know that the photograph she is looking at is of Giovanni Bianchi, the most feared man in Boston, a man whose reputation precedes him in the kinds of stories people tell in whispers at bars and in parking lots and in the backs of police cars where they are powerless to stop him. She does not know that this child is the missing daughter that the city's entire underworld has been searching for, the daughter that was taken when Giovanni's brother betrayed him, a kidnapping that started a war that has not yet ended. She only knows that Emma is terrified. She only knows that this child has been alone, and that she needs someone, and that Aria is here. "I will keep you safe," Aria whispers back. "I promise. No one will hurt you while I am here. Will you stay?" Emma asks. The question contains everything. It contains the entire weight of a 7-year-old's desperation, the last hope of a child who has learned that adults leave, that the people who are supposed to love you disappear, that the world is full of people who take things and never come back. "I will always stay," Aria says. "As long as you need me." But even as she says it, even as Emma closes the locket and tucks it back under her collar, the shelter doors open with a gust of November wind that carries the smell of snow and the sound of engines outside. The weather has been turning all week. The news has been warning that a blizzard is coming, the kind of storm that shuts down entire cities, that traps people in their homes and on the highways, that reminds everyone that nature is infinitely more powerful than money or reputation or the careful systems humans build to protect themselves. Aria's breath catches. She hears it in the change in the air, the way the temperature drops when the door opens, the way the light outside has turned from dark blue to the particular grey of snow that is about to fall. Emma's hand finds hers and squeezes. That night, after her shift ends, Aria drives through the first waves of snow to a diner 6 blocks from the shelter. The Boston Starlight Diner. It has been there for 40 years, and the checkered floor is scuffed with the footprints of thousands of people who have sat in these booths and ordered coffee and pie and tried to find warmth on nights when the world felt cold and dangerous. She works the evening shift here, 5 hours, $8 an hour plus tips that rarely exceed $5. Tonight, the diner is nearly empty because of the storm. The wind outside howls against the windows, and the snow piles up against the glass so fast you can actually see it accumulating, inch after inch after inch, until the window becomes just white, just wind, just the sound of the storm trying to get in. Aria wipes down the counter. She refills the coffee of an old man who sits alone in a corner booth, reading a newspaper that is 3 days old. She takes a plate of eggs to a woman who does not make eye contact. She tries not to think about Emma, about the silver locket, about the promise she made that she might not be able to keep. And then the bell above the door chimes. A man enters, and with him enters a blast of cold air and snow that swirls across the floor like a ghost. He is tall, well over 6 feet, broad-shouldered, wearing a cashmere coat that costs more than everything Aria owns. His suit underneath is tailored perfectly, dark grey, expensive, the kind of suit a man wears when he has never had to check his bank account. There is a scar running from his left eye to his cheekbone, a thin white line that makes his face dangerous in a way that goes beyond simple handsomeness. His eyes are dark, storm grey, and they move across the diner with the particular precision of someone who is always assessing, always calculating, always looking for threats. His name is Giovanni Bianchi, though Aria does not know this yet. Behind him, two men enter. They are younger, built like walls, wearing dark suits that fit their thick bodies imperfectly. They take positions at the door and the window, scanning the diner, their hands visible and ready. They are lieutenants. Their names are Bruno and Franco. They have been working for Giovanni for 12 years, and in those 12 years, they have never seen him enter a diner alone. Giovanni sits in the back booth. He orders coffee. He does not look at the menu. He does not acknowledge the two men who sit at separate tables, watching him, protecting him, keeping the machinery of his world running smoothly even as he sits in a nearly empty diner in the middle of a blizzard, drinking coffee that probably tastes like nothing to him. Aria brings the coffee. Their eyes meet for just a moment, and in that moment, something shifts. He sees a woman in a stained apron, with dark circles under her eyes, with a bruise on her face that is fading from purple to yellow. He sees someone who is invisible to the world, someone who has learned to move through spaces without taking up room, without being noticed, without expecting anything. And for reasons he does not fully understand, for reasons that have something to do with the photograph of a child that he carries in his wallet, for reasons that have something to do with the wound in his chest that has never healed, he sees something else too. He sees a person who has been hurt and is still standing. He sees courage that does not know it is courage because it has never had the luxury of recognizing itself as anything but survival. "Thank you," he says. His voice is deep and solid like an oath, like the kind of voice that people listen to and obey without question. Aria nods. She does not look at him again. She has learned that making eye contact with certain men can be dangerous. But he is still thinking about her as she walks away. And she is thinking about him, about the scar on his face, about the two men watching him like hawks, about the fact that this man is someone important in ways that the world recognizes and respects and fears. The blizzard intensifies. The diner fills briefly with more customers seeking shelter from the storm, people who need warmth and coffee and the simple fact of being inside. And then, at 9:47 in the evening, the bell above the door chimes again, and a man enters whose presence changes everything. He is tall, with a face that has been broken and reassembled badly, with knuckles scarred from violence, with eyes that are looking for someone specific. His name is Douglas Hale. He is 34 years old. He has been following Aria for 6 weeks, leaving letters in her car, watching her from across the street, convincing himself that she loves him, that she is playing hard to get, that underneath her rejection is a desire that matches his own. He is wrong. He sees her behind the counter, and he smiles. And Giovanni Bianchi, in his booth in the back, watching everything, sees that smile, and something cold and dangerous stirs in his chest. The diner at 3 in the morning smells like burnt bacon grease and desperation. Aria Harper sits in a corner booth, her hands wrapped around a chipped white coffee cup she can barely afford, the steam rising like the last honest thing in the room. Outside, the blizzard has sealed the roads. Snow hammers the windows in sheets. Visibility is almost zero. The wind sounds like something alive and hungry, pressing against the glass. She has $34 to her name. 34. That needs to last until Thursday when she gets paid, and Thursday is 5 days away. The diner is nearly empty. A few truckers in the front booths. 2 men in dark uniforms sitting by the window, eating pie slowly, their eyes occasionally drifting to their phones. Police, Aria thinks. Probably just taking shelter from the storm. Probably. The bell above the door chimes at 9:47. A man enters with snow clinging to his coat. He is tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that has been broken and reassembled by violence. His knuckles are scarred. His eyes move across the room systematically, looking for something specific. His name is Douglas Hale. He is 34 years old, the same age as her late husband, though this man carries no gentleness in his frame. This man carries hunger. He sees her. His smile spreads like poison. Aria's chest tightens. She has not seen Douglas Hale in 2 years, but he has never truly left. The letters he left in her car when she was parked behind the shelter. The time she felt eyes on her in the dark. The phone calls to the police that went nowhere because someone had told them not to listen to her. That someone was Douglas, with connections she did not fully understand. She does not look at him directly. She has learned that making eye contact with certain men can trigger something dangerous. Then the door opens again. A second man stumbles through, bleeding from his side, his expensive suit torn and soaked dark. He is tall, dark-haired, with a scar running from his left eye to his cheekbone. His face is familiar. Aria has seen it exactly once before, in a silver locket that a 7-year-old girl named Emma pressed into her hand 3 weeks ago. This is Giovanni Bianchi. The man who can kill people and have it forgotten by morning. The man whose name makes even shelter workers lower their voices. Douglas Hale has dragged him into the diner. Douglas's arm wraps around Giovanni's throat as he drags him toward the back booth, the one near the kitchen, the one where no one can see what happens. Giovanni's breathing is labored. His eyes are half closed. He is losing consciousness. He is losing the ability to fight back. The 2 police officers in the front booth do not move. They do not reach for their radios. They do not stand. One of them simply takes another bite of pie. Aria's hands begin to shake. Douglas slides into the booth across from Giovanni and pulls a knife. The blade catches the fluorescent light. It is long and serrated and designed for the kind of work that ends with bodies cooling on morgue tables. "You took territory that was not yours," Douglas says. His voice is thick and cruel, the voice of a man who has been told his whole life that the world exists to be taken. You took money that was not yours. And you took someone that was definitely not yours. Giovanni lifts his head slowly. Blood drips from his side onto the red vinyl. "I have never seen you before." "No. But my employer has seen you. The Rossi family sends their regards." Douglas leans forward. The knife point hovers inches from Giovanni's chest. "They also send this." The blade moves. Aria stands without deciding to stand. Her legs simply carry her forward while her mind is still catching up. She thinks of Emma. She thinks of a child in a small room at the shelter, drawing pictures of a father she barely remembers, wearing a locket with his photograph inside like it is a prayer. She thinks of what happens to 7-year-old girls when the men who love them disappear. She steps between them. The knife sinks into her shoulder instead. The pain is white-hot and absolute. It feels like the world has been split open. She gasps, tries to move, but her legs are already failing. She stumbles. Her vision tilts. And then Giovanni's arms are there, catching her, holding her, his dark eyes wide with something she has never seen before. Shock. Disbelief. Something almost like fear. "Why?" His voice cracks like he has not used it properly in years. "Why would you do that?" She cannot answer. The pain is too big for words. The diner door explodes inward. 2 men in black coats move like they have moved 1,000 times before, like violence is their native language. Bruno and Franco. Their guns are already drawn. Douglas Hale takes one look at them and bolts into the blizzard, his footsteps disappearing into the howl of wind and snow. The last thing Aria sees before her eyes close is Giovanni's face above hers, his scar moving as his jaw clenches, his hand pressing against her bleeding shoulder, his mouth forming words she will not hear until much later. "Hold on. Hold on. You are not allowed to die on me." The darkness takes everything after that. When she wakes, it is 3 days later, and she is lying in a bed that costs more than the car she used to own. The penthouse stretches across an entire floor of a building in downtown Boston. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame the city, the snow melting now, the January light pale and clean. The smell of leather and expensive cologne and fresh coffee fills the air. Her shoulder is wrapped in professional bandaging. Her arm is immobilized. And 4-line runs into her elbow, but the bag is nearly empty, which means the doctors finished their work yesterday. Giovanni Bianchi sits in a chair beside her bed, his tie loosened, his white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, revealing the dark chest hair and the thin silver chain he wears. He has not shaved. The stubble on his jaw makes him look less like a man and more like something carved from stone. His eyes are fixed on her face. They have been fixed on her face for hours. "Where am I?" Aria's voice comes out like gravel. Like something that has been dragged through darkness. "Safe," Giovanni says. He does not smile. "You saved my life. I did not calculate. I did not think." "Exactly. Why?" He leans forward. His hands are large and scarred, a map of the kind of work that leaves permanent marks. "Why would you step in front of a knife for a stranger?" Aria is quiet for a long time. The city hums beyond the windows. Somewhere down there, people are going to work and coming home and living the kind of ordinary lives that feel impossible when you have been living in a car. She thinks about lying. She thinks about protecting Emma by keeping her secret. Then she thinks about the locket in her own pocket, the one Emma gave her, the one with his face inside. "Because I know someone who loves you," Aria says slowly. "And I know what it would do to her to lose you." Giovanni's entire body goes rigid. The muscles in his neck tighten. His hands become fists. When he speaks, his voice is barely above a whisper. "Tell me." Her name is Emma. She is 7 years old. She has been at the Boston Community Shelter for the past 8 months. She asks about you every day. She draws pictures of you. She sleeps with your photograph around her neck. Giovanni stands. He moves to the window like the city below has suddenly become the most important thing in the world. His shoulders are shaking. Not crying. Giovanni Bianchi does not cry. But something inside him is breaking open like ice in spring. "The shelter," he says. "The address." Bruno moves before Giovanni finishes speaking. His phone is already in his hand. By the time Giovanni turns back to Aria, she can hear the first black SUV pulling away from the building below. Emma arrives at the penthouse at 2 in the afternoon. She is small for 7, with dark curly hair and her father's intense eyes. She wears a shelter-issued coat that does not fit right and shoes with holes in the toes. When she sees Giovanni, she freezes. The moment stretches like pulled taffy. Then recognition floods across her face like sunlight. "Papa." Giovanni drops to his knees. He pulls her into his arms, and his entire body shakes like the foundation of the world has been disturbed. Emma clings to him, her small fists balled in his jacket, her voice muffled against his chest. "I knew you would find me," she whispers. "I knew you would come." "I am here," he says. "I am here. I am here." Aria watches from the doorway of the penthouse bedroom, tears streaming down her face. She should not be here. She should not be seeing this. This is not her grief, not her joy, not her moment. But when Giovanni looks up over Emma's head and sees her, his eyes hold something she has never seen before. Recognition. Gratitude. Something that looks almost like love, though it cannot be, because they are strangers, because he is Giovanni Bianchi and she is a woman who counted $34 under a bathroom mirror 3 days ago. "You gave me back everything," he says. His voice cracks. Everything. A week passes like something out of a dream that Aria knows will end when she wakes. The penthouse becomes her world. A room on the 3rd floor overlooks the Charles River. The bed is soft. The water runs hot indefinitely. There are fresh clothes in a closet, all in her size, all beautiful in ways she never knew clothes could be. Giovanni's housekeeper, a woman named Rosa, brings her meals 3 times a day and shakes her head when Aria thanks her. Eat, Rosa says in a voice thick with Spanish accent. The boss is watching you. The boss is always watching now. Emma follows her everywhere. The child refuses to sleep unless Aria reads to her. She refuses to go to the bathroom without Aria nearby. She shows Aria her drawings, a house with a sun, a little girl with curly hair holding a woman's hand, a man with a scar. That is you, Emma says, pointing to the woman. In my pictures. That is you. Giovanni shows a gentleness that his men have never witnessed. He brings Aria coffee in the mornings, precisely how she likes it, black, 2 sugars, cooling just enough to drink without burning. He sits with her at night on the penthouse balcony overlooking the city, and they talk about things that do not matter. They talk about books and music and the way snow looks when it catches the streetlights. But one night, Aria mentions her debt. Medical bills, she says quietly. My husband died 4 years ago. Cancer. The treatment cost $85,000. The hospital has been collecting for 3 years now. I owe them everything I make. Everything. And now they are threatening to sue. 7 days, they told me. 7 days or they file in court. Giovanni does not react immediately. He simply listens. Then he pulls out his phone and types something, and the phone rings immediately. Consider it handled, he says. I cannot. You already did when you stepped in front of that knife. This is the interest being paid. By the next morning, the debt is gone. Aria calls the hospital, and they tell her the account has been paid in full. Cleared. No remaining balance. No pending litigation. She feels something crack inside her chest. 3 weeks after the stabbing, Aria begins to notice the surveillance. She sees the cameras in the hallway. She sees the men Bruno positions near the elevators. She sees the way Giovanni's eyes have changed, like he is looking at her through darker glass now. One midnight, she realizes what is happening. She realizes that Giovanni has begun to doubt her. That his old wounds, the ones his brother's betrayal carved into him, have begun to reopen. She starts to sneak out. She takes bags. Small things. Money that she has hidden in her room, $72 now. A photograph of her late husband, Marcus, the only photograph she has left. She leaves at midnight when the building is quiet, when Bruno is changing shifts, when there is a 5-minute window of opportunity. She goes to the shelter. She visits Emma there in secret, bringing her clothes and books and the kind of food that shelters never have. She sits with the other women and listens to their stories of violence and loss. She is building a life for Emma that does not depend on Giovanni Bianchi because she knows how this story ends. She knows that men like him do not keep women like her. What she does not know is that Bruno and Franco have been following her the entire time. The evening when Douglas Hale finds her, she is walking Emma to the park for 15 minutes of sunshine. The blizzard has finally cleared. The day is sharp and cold and bright. Emma holds her hand and talks about the pictures she has been drawing. Aria is smiling, which is when Douglas steps from behind a tree, and his smile is the oldest threat she knows. You think you are safe now, he says. His voice is the same cruelty, the same hunger. You think he can protect you forever? Aria pulls Emma behind her. The child's hand trembles in hers. Aria's own hand is steady. You will never touch her, Aria says. Her voice is low and absolute, like something she did not know lived inside her has finally woken up. Douglas laughs. We will see. We will see how long the boss cares about you once he knows the truth. He walks away, disappearing into the Boston afternoon, leaving behind only the cold that has nothing to do with January. Meanwhile, in a high-end cafe on Newbury Street, Evelyn Blackwell sits across a small marble table from Douglas Hale. She is in her 50s, with blonde hair that costs $300 to maintain and a dress that costs more than Aria makes in 6 months. Her lipstick is a deep red. Her nails are immaculate. There is not a crack in her armor except for the cruelty in her eyes. I want her destroyed, Evelyn says. Each word is delivered like a bullet. Publicly. Completely. I want the world to know what she is. She is under Giovanni Bianchi's protection now, Douglas says. Evelyn smiles. It is not a kind smile. Then we destroy him too. The Rossi family has been looking for an opening. The Rossi family will provide protection once Aria Harper is gone. She takes a sip of her coffee. The cup is porcelain so thin it is almost transparent. Across the city, in a penthouse that touches the sky, Giovanni Bianchi is reviewing surveillance footage. He watches Aria slip out at midnight. He watches her take bags. He watches her disappear into the darkness. And he does not see her feeding homeless women at a shelter. He does not see her sitting with Emma at the park. He does not see kindness. He sees betrayal. His jaw hardens. His hands become fists. He tells Bruno and Franco to follow her on the next midnight run, and if she is meeting anyone, if she is communicating with the Rossi family or anyone else who might be his enemy, they should bring her to him immediately. And if it is betrayal? Bruno asks carefully. Giovanni looks out at the city that he owns, this city of ice and brick and broken promises. He thinks about his brother, who smiled at him while selling his secrets to their father's enemies. He thinks about the lesson he learned 30 years ago, loyalty is currency and betrayal is death. Then we will show her what happens to people who step into the light and pretend they belong there. The words hang in the penthouse like a curse. The December snow falls on the frozen streets of Boston like crushed glass, and Aria Harper stands outside a small apartment in the shelter district, her breath visible in the bitter cold. Through the frosted window, she reads to 4 children huddled on a worn mattress, Emma curled against her shoulder, 3 others wrapped in blankets that Aria bought with money Giovanni gave her for herself. She has spent every dollar meant for her own survival on these children instead. Her voice is soft, trembling like a candle in the wind as she reads about a girl who finds her way home. 2 blocks away, Bruno's black sedan sits idling in the darkness. Inside, Bruno and Franco watch through binoculars, their faces hardening with confusion. They were told to follow Aria to a betrayal. Instead, they are watching her give away everything she has. Bruno pulls out his phone. His voice is low, steady. It is not what we thought. Giovanni answers on the first ring. Report. She is at the shelter district. Children. 4 of them. She is reading to them, sir. She brought food. Warm clothes. Everything she owns seems to be here, distributed among them. The silence that follows stretches like a blade. Giovanni does not respond. He ends the call. 30 minutes later, Giovanni Bianchi stands in the frozen darkness outside that same apartment building, snow collecting on the shoulders of his black cashmere coat worth more than Aria's annual salary. He watches through the window. He sees Aria's exhausted face, the way she tucks Emma's hair behind her ear, the way she reads each voice differently for each character because these children need to believe that stories have many kinds of people in them, and maybe they could be any of those people if they tried hard enough. Giovanni's jaw unclenches. His hands unball from fists. In that moment, he is not the most feared man in Boston. He is not a mafia boss or an empire builder. He is a man watching the person who saved his life sacrifice her own survival for strangers' children. His phone buzzes. A text from his security team, Douglas Hale entered a residence on Beacon Hill. Placed what appears to be a written threat in his vehicle. Second team confirms Evelyn Blackwell is attending the Charity Foundation Gala tonight. Both targets appear to be accelerating their timeline. Giovanni's eyes close. The rage returns, but it is redirected now. It is focused like a laser, like a blade wrapped in ice, not at the woman reading to children, but at the people who would hurt her. He calls Bruno. Bring her back. All of them. Bring all the children. Yes, sir. 30 minutes later, Aria stands in Giovanni's penthouse, snow melting from her hair, her worn coat dripping on marble floors that cost more than everything she has ever owned. The children stand close to her, eyes wide, overwhelmed by the size and light and silence of this place that belongs to a man they do not understand. Emma's hand never leaves Aria's. Giovanni enters from the elevator. He is still in the cashmere coat, snow still on his shoulders, and when he looks at the children, his expression shifts into something his own men have never seen before. Gentleness. Deliberate, careful gentleness, like a man soothing a frightened animal. "My name is Giovanni," he says. His voice is not the voice he uses to give orders. It is softer. "You are safe here. All of you. Tonight and every night after." One of the children, a boy no more than 6, steps forward. "Are you a bad man?" Aria says some people are bad people, but bad people can learn to be better. Giovanni kneels. His expensive suit folds against the marble. He is now at eye level with the child, and the question hangs between them like a prayer with no answer yet. Giovanni says. "For a long time, I was a very bad man. But then I met someone who reminded me that there are people worth being better for." The boy nods, as if this explanation is perfectly reasonable, and returns to Aria's side. Bruno and Franco stand in the shadows of the penthouse, exchanging a look that neither man has ever exchanged before. In 20 years of service to Giovanni Bianchi, they have never witnessed anything like this. They do not move. They do not speak. They simply watch, and in their hearts, they know that their world has fundamentally changed. Giovanni stands. He turns to Aria. His dark eyes hold hers, and the question is not spoken but understood completely. "Do you understand now what I know?" Aria nods slowly. She does. The children sleep in the guest wing. Real beds. Real blankets. Emma breathes softly in the darkness, finally safe enough to sleep without fear, finally warm enough to stop shaking. Aria stands on the penthouse balcony, alone, 23 stories above the city. The snow has stopped. The sky is beginning to clear toward dawn. She can see the shelter from here, that small building where 6 months ago she was counting $34 under fluorescent lights, believing she was nobody, believing her life had no value. Her phone buzzes. A notification. A photo of her face has appeared on a society gossip blog. The headline reads, "Gold Digger or Con Artist?" What we know about Giovanni Bianchi's latest acquisition. Aria reads the comments. They scroll endlessly, each one more vicious than the last. Con artist. Seducer. User. Parasite. Women like you destroy good men. She has seen worse before, but she has never seen it attached to her real face, her real name. Another notification. An article in a financial blog, Boston's most eligible bachelor fooled by street thief. Sources say Aria Harper has seduced multiple wealthy men. The snow begins again, light at first, then heavier. Aria's hands grip the railing. The balcony is high enough that she can see the entire city spread below her like a game board, all those lights, all those people going about their lives, and none of them knowing that she exists, and maybe that was better, maybe invisibility was protection, maybe she should have stayed disappeared. The elevator doors open behind her. Giovanni emerges, and he does not need to speak. He simply stands beside her, his coat collar turned up against the wind, his shoulder close enough that she can feel the warmth radiating from him. Evelyn Blackwell did this, Aria says. Her voice is barely a whisper. Douglas showed me a note. He said they are planning something bigger. He said, she cannot finish. I know what they said, Giovanni interrupts. His voice is deep and solid like an oath. And I know what they are planning. Emma's location was almost compromised yesterday. An attempt to acquire the address where the children are being held was traced back to Evelyn's lawyer. Aria's body goes rigid. Emma. They would take her again. They would use her too. They will not, Giovanni says. It is not a promise. It is a statement of absolute fact. Because what happens next will ensure that Douglas Hale and Evelyn Blackwell never have the opportunity to threaten anyone again. He takes her hand. His palm is warm, calloused like a man who once did his own work before he built an empire to do it for him. Go inside. Be with Emma. Let me handle what comes next. Aria wants to argue. She wants to tell him that she cannot let another person sacrifice themselves for her safety. But she also knows that some men have codes, and some codes are written in stone, and Giovanni Bianchi's code is written in ice. She returns inside. The next morning breaks grey and cold. Boston wakes to sirens and news helicopters. At 4:07 a.m., 12 men dressed in black move through Douglas Hale's apartment like ghosts. They enter without breaking doors because Douglas never locked them. They find him sleeping, and when he wakes, Giovanni Bianchi is standing at the foot of his bed, and the look in Giovanni's eyes is the look of a man whose mercy has been exhausted. "You left a note," Giovanni says. His voice is quiet. Quiet is worse than shouting. "You threatened her. You threatened a child who never had a choice in being born into your orbit." Douglas scrambles backward, his body instinctively understanding that he is trapped, that the geometry of the room offers no escape. He is trembling like a cornered animal, like something that has suddenly understood that it has always been prey. "I can explain," Douglas says. "I can pay. I have money." "I have?" "The Rossi family is waiting for you," Giovanni says. "I have given them evidence that you have been an FBI informant for months. That you have been helping federal agents dismantle their operations. That you are a rat wearing a human face." The door opens. 2 men step from the shadows. They are not Giovanni's men. They are Rossi family. Their faces are blank like machines. Douglas tries to run. He makes it as far as the window before Franco blocks his path. The scream that comes from him is not human. It is the sound of something understanding, finally, completely, that it is about to disappear. They drag him from the apartment. His fingers claw at the doorframe, leaving bloody marks. The screaming continues down the hallway, down the stairs, into the street where neighbors pretend they hear nothing because hearing something means becoming a witness, and witnesses in Boston have a tendency to vanish. By sunrise, Douglas Hale no longer exists. His apartment is empty. His bank accounts are frozen. The FBI will find no body. The Rossi family will never confirm his location. He simply ceases. 8 hours later, at the Charity Foundation Gala, Evelyn Blackwell stands in a room of 200 people wearing a dress that costs $7,000, her diamond earrings catching the light, her smile perfected by years of practice at being someone everyone wants to know. Giovanni Bianchi approaches her. He is not in a suit tonight. He is in a tuxedo that costs more than most people's cars, and his presence in the room causes the conversations to die like candles in the wind. Evelyn's face transforms when she sees him. She believes, in that moment, that she has won. She believes he is here to publicly claim her, to elevate her, to make her the woman beside the most powerful man in Boston. "Evelyn," he says. His voice is smooth as silk wrapped around broken glass. "I have something for you." He hands her a folder. Thin. Unmarked. She opens it with trembling fingers because she can feel something shifting in the room, something cold and dangerous settling into the air like a storm warning. Inside are photographs. The hit and run. The body of the young man who died 3 years ago when Evelyn drove drunk and did not stop. There are financial records. Embezzled funds from the women's shelter, the children's hospital, the homeless outreach program. There are email chains. Conversations with Douglas about destroying Aria. Everything. Everything laid bare. Her face goes white like bone. "You cannot do this," Evelyn says. Her voice is no longer controlled. It is fractured like glass. "You cannot." "I already did," Giovanni says. He turns to the federal judge standing 3 feet away, the one Giovanni invited personally to this gala. "She is all yours." The FBI agents enter from the side doors. They are quiet and efficient. They do not need to be loud because the room itself is enough of a witness. 200 pairs of eyes watch as Evelyn Blackwell is read her rights, as handcuffs are placed on wrists that have never known anything but privilege, as she is led through the crowd of people she believed were her friends, and they do not look at her, they simply turn away like she is already a ghost. The photographs stay on the table. Guests pick them up, study them, understand exactly what has happened. By the time Evelyn reaches the street, everyone in that room knows the truth. By morning, the story is in every newspaper in Boston. By the end of the week, every news outlet in the country has run it. 40-year federal prison sentence. Total financial ruin. Complete social annihilation. By nightfall, both Douglas Hale and Evelyn Blackwell have ceased to exist in any meaningful way. Emma sits in the penthouse kitchen the next morning, eating cereal from a bowl, her small feet not reaching the floor, swinging back and forth like a pendulum. Aria sits beside her, and for the first time in what feels like forever, she is not afraid. The fear has not evaporated entirely, but it has been weighted down by something stronger. Giovanni enters the kitchen. He is not in his expensive suits today. He is in worn jeans and a grey sweater, and he looks almost like a regular person until you notice the way he moves, the way the room acknowledges his presence without his needing to speak. "Good morning," he says. Emma looks up at him, milk on her upper lip. "Are you staying for breakfast?" "If you will have me," Giovanni says. And in that moment, something shifts again. Emma nods seriously, like she has just made a business decision, and she goes back to her cereal, and Giovanni sits down at the table like it is the most natural thing in the world for him to be here. Aria watches this. She watches a man who was built to destroy learning to build something gentle instead. She watches him ask Emma about her dreams for school, what subjects she likes, whether she prefers the ocean or the mountains. She watches him listen, actually listen, with full attention, like this small child's opinions matter more than the city outside these walls. After Emma finishes breakfast and goes to play with the other children, Giovanni and Aria are alone. "She will need stability," Giovanni says. His voice has shifted back to something more serious. "She will need to know that you are permanent. That this is not temporary." Aria understands what he is asking. She understands that he is offering to make the invisible visible, to give her a name and a status and a place in the world that cannot be erased by gossip or cruelty. "I need to know something," Aria says. "When you stood outside that apartment building, before you called Bruno, before you knew the truth, did you ever think of killing me?" Giovanni is quiet for a long moment. The city hums outside the windows, indifferent to the conversation happening inside. "Yes," he says. "Finally. Honestly. For exactly 4 minutes, I did. And then Bruno called me, and everything changed." Aria nods. This is the answer she needs. Not a lie. Not a reassurance. The truth rendered in ice. "Then I will stay," she says. "With Emma. With you. With whatever comes next." Giovanni reaches across the table and takes her hand. His grip is gentle but absolute, like a promise that cannot be broken because it is written in the most permanent language available to men like him. Outside, snow begins to fall on Boston again. The snow falls in thick, silent curtains around the penthouse balcony, each flake catching the amber glow of the Boston skyline stretched beneath them. Aria stands with her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that has gone cold, watching the city pulse with light and movement far below. She wears a simple cream-colored dress, elegant without being ornate, her hair falling in waves that catch the light. Her skin has color again. Her eyes are clear. The desperate hollowness that lived in her face 1 year ago has been replaced by something harder to name, not quite peace, but the possibility of it. She has not seen Giovanni in 4 months. After the danger passed, after Douglas Hale and Evelyn Blackwell were handed to his rivals and disappeared into the Boston night without a sound, Giovanni withdrew. Not coldly. Not with cruelty. But with a deliberate distance, like a man stepping back from something beautiful that might shatter under his touch. He sent money for the non-profit, the House of Hope that now sits in a renovated warehouse in Dorchester, warm and filled with 43 children who are no longer sleeping in cars or shelters or alleys. He helped her secure the building, the permits, the legal structure. But he did not come to the opening. He did not call. He let her become what she needed to become without the shadow of his world falling across her new life. Aria thought this meant he had moved on. She thought the intensity of those weeks, the way he had looked at her after learning the truth about Emma, the way his hand had felt when he held hers as they sat together in the quiet of his penthouse, she thought all of that was circumstantial. Born from crisis. The kind of connection that evaporates when the danger passes and ordinary life returns. She sees him in every dark-haired man who passes on the street below. She hears his voice in the silence of her apartment at night. She thinks of him every single day, which she tells herself is foolish, which she tells herself must stop. The apartment door opens behind her. She does not turn. The sound of footsteps is unmistakable, measured, deliberate, the weight of someone accustomed to commanding rooms with their presence alone. Giovanni moves across the penthouse like water, fluid and unavoidable. When he speaks, his voice is deeper than she remembers, or perhaps she has simply forgotten the specific timbre of it, the way it lands like something solid in the space between them. "I have been looking for you," he says. Aria turns. Giovanni Bianchi stands in the balcony doorway, backlit by the interior light of the apartment. He is older than he was 1 year ago, or perhaps the months have simply marked him differently. His face shows the weight of decisions made in darkness, of business conducted in the spaces between law and consequence. But his eyes are soft in a way she has never seen them before, the grey of them gentle, almost vulnerable. He wears a black cashmere coat that must cost more than the entire yearly budget of the House of Hope. Beneath it, a white shirt, unbuttoned at the collar. His hands are empty. His shoulders, which once seemed built for carrying the burden of an entire criminal empire, now seem merely built for standing beside her. "Giovanni," she says, and his name is the only word she can manage. He steps onto the balcony. The cold does not seem to touch him. "For a year, I carried something I could not say," he begins. His voice is like thunder, deep and resonant and impossible to ignore. "When you stepped in front of that knife, you did not just save my life. You reminded me what it means to be human in a world that made me a monster. Every single day since that moment, I have thought about you. Not because of what you did for Emma. Because of who you are. Your courage. Your refusal to let cruelty have the final word. Aria, I love you. I have loved you since the moment you threw yourself into danger for a stranger. A man you did not know. A man your instinct should have told you to fear." Aria's breath catches. Tears spill across her cheeks before she can stop them, hot against her cold skin. "I thought you forgot," she whispers. "When you stayed away, I thought." "Forget you?" Giovanni steps closer, close enough that she can feel the warmth radiating from him, close enough that his presence becomes a kind of shelter. "Impossible. I stayed away because you deserve to become who you are without me casting shadows over it. You needed to know that your strength came from you, not from me. That the woman who built the House of Hope, who gives homeless children a place to sleep and a reason to believe in tomorrow, that woman exists because you chose to become her. Not because I made space for her. But Aria, I cannot stay away anymore. I will not." He reaches into his coat pocket. His hand emerges holding the silver locket, the one that belongs to Emma, the one that has been waiting for someone to claim it. He opens it with careful fingers. Inside, the photograph of a man she recognizes as Giovanni, younger, his face unguarded. But there is another photograph now, on the opposite side. It is Aria and Emma, taken 3 weeks ago at the House of Hope, both of them laughing, both of them alive in a way that suggests they are no longer merely surviving. "Emma wanted you to have this," Giovanni says. His voice trembles slightly, the first crack in his composure. "She said that when she looks at it, she remembers that her mother chose her. That her family chose her. I want you to have it because it is the truth. This is my family. You and Emma. Everything else is just noise. The business, the money, the empire, it means nothing without you to share it with. I am asking you to stay. Not as a guest in my life. as the foundation of it. Aria takes the locket with shaking hands. The metal is warm from his pocket, from his body, from the heat of him. She holds it like it is the most precious thing she has ever touched, which it is, because it represents everything she thought was impossible. A second chance. A family. A love that chose her, not despite her past, but because she survived it. I am not part of your world, Giovanni, she says, but her words are uncertain, testing ground that has already shifted beneath her feet. You are my world, he says. Everything else is just the periphery. Aria, you taught me that loyalty means something beyond obligation. That love is not a transaction. That the most powerful choice a person can make is to stand in front of danger for someone else. I have spent my life learning how to destroy things. You taught me how to build them instead. With you, I want to build something that lasts. A life. A family. A future where Emma grows up knowing that she is loved by two people who would walk through fire for her. He reaches out and takes her hand. His grip is gentle but absolute, warm and steady, the kind of touch that carries a promise written in the language of devotion. The snow continues to fall around them, soft and relentless, covering the city in white. The skyline glows beneath the clouds. The wind carries the smell of winter and possibility. Aria squeezes his hand in return. Then I will stay, she says. With Emma. With you. With whatever comes next. They stand together on the balcony, two people who were never supposed to meet, who found each other in the collision between desperation and mercy, who have chosen each other against every odd that seemed insurmountable. The snow accumulates on their shoulders, in their hair, on the ledge beside them. Neither of them moves. Neither of them speaks. There is nothing left to say that the gesture does not already contain. 3 months later, the House of Hope expands. Aria moves through the newly renovated second floor, checking on the children settling into their beds, ensuring that blankets are warm enough, that pillows are soft, that each of the 62 children under their care knows with certainty that they are safe. The building smells like fresh paint and possibility. Donations have arrived from unexpected sources, legitimate businesses that Giovanni has quietly transferred into legal operations, foundations established in Aria's name, wealthy individuals who read about the House of Hope and chose to invest in its future. Emma runs through the halls with the other children, no longer the traumatized girl who flinched at sudden sounds. She is 7 years old now, confident, bright, a child who has been given permission to become herself. She calls Aria Mom without hesitation, without the tentative quality of a word that might be taken back. She calls Giovanni Papa with the same unself-conscious certainty, and he responds by kneeling to her level, by asking about her day, by braiding her hair on Sunday mornings in the penthouse, his large finger somehow managing the delicate work with surprising gentleness. The city snow falls again as December arrives. Aria stands in the main room of the House of Hope, watching children eat dinner at long tables, the warmth of the space palpable, the sense of belonging almost visible in the air. Bruno and Franco, Giovanni's oldest lieutenants, have begun volunteering here 3 nights a week, these men built for violence now learning to fold children's clothing, to read bedtime stories, to sit quietly with traumatized children who need to know that safety is not a lie. A young woman appears in the doorway. She is thin in the way that hunger creates, her clothes layered despite the warmth of the building, her eyes carrying the particular exhaustion of someone who has not slept in a safe place in months. She looks around the room with the expression of someone who has wandered into a dream and is afraid to move in case it shatters. Aria recognizes herself in her. She walks across the room and approaches slowly, carefully, the way you approach a frightened animal. Up close, she can see the girl is maybe 23, maybe younger. It is hard to tell when hardship has aged someone prematurely. There is a bruise on her collarbone, the particular kind of mark that comes from someone's hands. What is your name? Aria asks, her voice gentle. Casey, the girl says. I was told there might be a place to stay. Just for tonight. I have $17 and I need to make it last until I can find work, and I saw the sign outside that says no one is turned away, and I am sorry for just showing up, but I have nowhere else. You do not need to apologize, Aria says. She reaches out slowly and takes the girl's hand. It is cold, the skin of it calloused and rough. My name is Aria. I know exactly where you are right now. Exactly how it feels. And I promise you something, it does not end here. This is not the end of your story. This is the moment where it begins to change. Casey's face crumples. Tears spill over, the kind of tears that come from holding yourself together for so long that the holding finally becomes impossible. Aria pulls her close, and the girl, this stranger, this version of her own past self, breaks apart against her shoulder. Around them, the children continue eating. Bruno brings Casey a plate of warm food. Franco finds her a clean blanket. Emma appears at Aria's side and takes Casey's other hand, offering comfort with the unself-conscious generosity of a child who has learned that safety is meant to be shared. That night, as snow falls on Boston again, Giovanni and Aria sit on the penthouse balcony. She wears a simple diamond ring now, placed on her finger 6 weeks earlier in a quiet moment that contained more love than any elaborate ceremony could have held. They sit close enough to share warmth, watching the city sleep beneath a blanket of white. Casey will stay, Aria says. She will work with us. I can see it. She has the strength to survive, and she needs what the House of Hope offers, permission to become something other than what her past has defined her as. Like you, Giovanni says. Like me, Aria agrees. He takes her hand. The gold of his watch catches the city light. Outside, the snow continues its patient, relentless work, covering everything in white, erasing the marks of the city's pain, offering the possibility of newness. Aria Harper once counted $34 in a gas station bathroom at 3 in the morning, believing that this was all she would ever be. Tonight, she stands beside a man who taught her that love is not a transaction, that loyalty runs deeper than obligation, that the most powerful choice a person can make is to step in front of danger for someone else. She has built a life. She has built a family. She has built a future. If this story moved your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs hope today. Subscribe because tomorrow we have another story of love, survival, and justice you will not want to miss. Drop a comment and tell us, what would you have done in Aria's position? We will see you in the next one. After the rain, the sky clears. And sometimes miracles come from the most unexpected places. Thank you for staying with us until the very end.